In this video, I am going to show you how to create a professional session using Python and Bottle, so a user can log in, log out, and have access to the admin page. The first thing I'm going to do in the session folder, I'm going to run the Python command to install the virtual environment. If you're in a Mac computer, this should be Python 3. Or in some computers, JSPY. But as soon as you have run the command, you will see these files and folders created. Now we are going to activate this virtual environment. And once it's activated, we're going to install Bottle. It's done, so we're going to create our web server in a file called app.py. From Bottle, import run. These are just some comments to make it look better. And we set up the run function to have the host that is going to be our local IP address 127.0.0.1. We can run it in any port. I will run it on port 3323. I will set the debug flag to true and reloader to true. Save it and let's run the python app.py command. The server is up and running. Let's create our login page. I'm going to import get, and we use the get decorator to deliver the login page. Create a function. Call it anything you want. I call it with the underscore and return the word login. 127.0.0.1 in the browser, port 3333 /login. This will be the route of it. We see the login page. Right away, I'm going to inspect the element. And if you're using Chrome, find the application tab. In Firefox, I will find the storage tab, and we need the cookies as we go along in the video. We're going to import also Vue, so we can create the form that will allow us to log in. Create the views folder, create an HTML page, call it login.html. And a simple HTML template. I will just move there. That window. Login, we're going to create a form. The action is going to point to the login action with a method of post. I'm not going to work the details of it because this is beyond this video. I want to concentrate in creating the session. Create an input field. Give it a name attribute, call it user email, and just so the user knows what to type in it, we set a placeholder with email. Let's create a new input field called user password, and this will be for the password placeholder. We need to create a button, and the button will display the caption login. Save it. Here we need to use the view decorator, and this will use the login.html page, but I will not write the .html because Bottle knows how to handle that automatically. Reload the page and let's see what we have here. It seems that this is running fine. I don't see any issues, and the reason I'm getting the login here, it's because I need to delete it. So I actually return the view. Reload, and we have the email and the password ready. If you had a Redis database, you could connect to Redis or MySQL, which is MariaDB, or if you have a SQLite database or any other one like MongoDB, you will have the data of the users in one of these databases. Probably not Redis unless you are using it for caching purposes. To keep it simple, I will create a database and I will just call it users, and this will contain a list of users. Create an ID for a user. Let's pretend that the ID is 1. The name of the user is the letter A. The last name is AA. The email will be a@a.com, and the password, let me break this into multiple lines so you see the dictionary with the first user, and the password, which is the last key value pair, will be, for now, we will just say pass1. So this is the first user, and this should look like this, so it makes sense. I'm going to create a second user. 2 will be enough to test the application, where I will have the ID 2, the name B, last name BB, email b@b.com, and pass 2. Save it and just reload to see if we have any errors. Everything is running fine. So now when we hit the login button, we should go to the post route. Let's build that route. I will do it here. Post /login, create the function, and for now just return the letter X. Post is complaining because we have not imported it, so we go all the way to the top and we import post. Let's try it again. Let's just click there, reload the page, click on login, and we see the letter X. So here's where the login is going to take place. In order to log in, we need to pass the user email and the user password back to the back end, to the server. So we are going to grab the user email right away from the request, which we don't have this package, so we also need to import it. So we have the request, and for now just let me do that so I don't have to scroll up and down. Request, and then from the forms we're going to get the user email variable, and we will do the exact same thing for the user password. Something went off there, user password. Now that we have these two variables, we are going to see if there is a match with the email and password and compare it with any of these emails and any of these passwords there. So they both have to match. If the user email equals, and here we need to check these users there, either this one or this one there. So we will need to have a loop in order to check them. So I will start with a loop first of all for user in users, and we're going to check if the user email is the same as the user, and right here we need to point to the key called email, and the other key is called password, just to remember it. So if it's the same as the user email and the user password is the same as the user password, I will have to zoom out just for a second so you see what I type in there. Remember the column there. So if there is a match in the email and the password inside this user, if so, that means that it has been found. We're going to redirect the user to the admin page. And this will be a return. Since we have not included this redirect function, we're going to do that here. Redirect. If there's a match, we take the user to the admin page, or else we just return redirect and we take the user back to the login page. We do not have the admin page for now, so let's build it. Create a new view, call it admin.html, and in this admin page, we're just going to display welcome in an H1. Welcome admin. Save it. Let's test it. We go back to the login page. Now there's an issue somewhere because this should have been displayed. It's not working. I have saved all the files, so I will just kill the server by pressing Ctrl+CC a couple of times, and I will rerun it again. Now the page isn't responding again. I do have this route, and we have an issue that I cannot debug by looking at the browser or by looking at this terminal. So the issue is actually that I coded it in the view login, not in the login post. So I did it in the get, not in the post part. I'm going to move this code around. So when the user requests the login page, I made a mistake. I coded it in the wrong place. So this should have been there. And when the user requests the login page, we should just return. Let's test it. And now we have the login. If it's incorrect, I is still in the login page. If I enter the email that is found in our temporal database, the mail is a@a.com and the password is pass1. Click on login and we are taken to the admin page, which we don't have. So this is fine. Let's build now the admin endpoint. Get admin. Let's define a function. And this will just return nothing for now because we are going to use the view decorator in which we deliver the admin.html page. Save it. Let's try it one more time. Wrong password. We have to enter the password and the email again. Pass1, login, welcome admin. So now we're going to set a session with a cookie so we can keep track of this logged user. The cookies that we have here are empty. You can see them, there's nothing in there. So what we do is when the user has successfully logged in because there was a match, we're going to response and we're going to set a cookie. If you want to know more about this, you can go and Google for bottom set cookie, for example. Bottom set cookie, and you will have the documentation about it. Bottle P1, just to be explicit, and somewhere here you will find the documentation for it. So now that that's done, the response has not been imported, so we're going to do that as well. Response, just so you see it. Save, and now it's not complaining anymore. We're going to set a cookie. We're going to say that this has a user ID, and the user ID is going to be an ID that we will generate right here. Let's do that. Let's create the ID by importing UUID. Import UUID. And now here we are going to build it. So we say USTR because we want to typecast it to a string. UUID.UUID for this will give us the ID for this user. But before we do that, and this is not the user's ID, just so you know it, this is the user session ID, not to confuse you. And this ID that we generated, the server also needs to know about it, so it will have to keep it in a Redis database. That will be making a lot of sense. So we're going to create that this is the Redis DB. So we create a sessions list. At the moment, it's empty. We're going to populate it in a second. Since this was correct, we're going to create a user session ID variable, which will be this one there. So I cut it and paste it. And I forgot one parenthesis there. And this user ID session will be passed to the browser in the cookie. And we're also going to talk to our sessions list, and we're going to append the user session ID. Save it, and we're going to try to log in again. I will log in with the correct data, click on login, and we're going to look at the cookie. So right here, we have the data. We have a variable called user session ID. This is hard to see because the way I have it done, so let's see if I can move it around. Not really, but okay. I will expand the browser so you can better see it. So we have a key called user session ID. You can see it there. And the value of it is this UUID that was generated. And the same value, this alphanumeric that you see here, is also saved in the server side in the sessions list. So at the moment, this list does contain that UUID. And that's what's called a session, because the server has that key, that UUID, and so does the client. So instead of saying welcome admin only, we're going to put some data in that UUID. So I will just copy this UUID. It's hard for me to copy it from there. So let me just go to UUID online. And we're going to pretend that the UUID that I will copy is the one that is in the browser. So I just copy it. And this is what I would like to build. Something that you are not familiar with probably. This is quite nice to know. It's advanced, but it's a technique that I use a lot. So what I will do is I will create a key here that contains the UUID, and this will point to an object, to a dictionary, where I would like to keep data about the user. So this could be one solution, but then for the sessions, we cannot really do this. So I'm going to do a small tweak in the sessions. I'm going to say that the session is going to be a dictionary, and now I can have keys and values. So the idea is that the key will be the UUID and the value will be a dictionary in itself. Tricky when you see it the first time, but this will be nice to use. So in this session, with this key, I would like to put info about the user, for example, the ID, and I would like to have the email and the name and so on. So that's what I'm going to try to add to this key. So for now, I just have the sessions to be this empty dictionary. Save it again, and I will just test to see if the code is broken somewhere. I will log in, and I have the error here, where it says that the attribute dictionary object doesn't have an attribute append. So what I do is this. In the sessions, I'm going to create the key called user ID session ID, and this key will point to a user object. And what I want to keep in this user object will be the user in itself. So I'm going to print sessions so you see what I end up having. And I will also print just before that the hashtags times 30 so it's easy to spot it. I will log in again with the valid email and valid password. It says welcome admin, and when we look at the sessions data, we can see that we have this key and this contains this user. Obviously, you don't want to keep the password of the user in there, but for now, we leave it as it is so we don't make the video too complex. So once that is done, when the user goes to the admin page, the user will have access to the cookie name, which is the user session ID. And this cookie name user session ID will contain the UUID key. So let's get it. User session ID equals from the request get the cookie. So that's the whole cookie, and the cookie has this variable name called user session ID. User session ID. And with this user session ID, we can extract the user from the sessions that we had in there. So what I will do is I will say that the user equals from the sessions, I will point to the user session ID. And with this, I can actually return this user to the view. So I will return a dictionary where the user key equals the user variable. This is a key I just invented, and the user is the variable user. In the admin page, I will say hello. And since I have this user dictionary that I'm passing, and user in itself is a dictionary, I will say hello user, and then I will point to the name, and then I will say your email is, and then I point again to the user, and this time to the email. Save it. Let me test it one more time. Log in. Let's see if this works or not. Now, I have done something wrong because it's not loading the page. I will try it one more time. Stop it, reload the server. Something is off. I will kill it. And then I will restart it. All right, it's restarted. Click on login. Hello A. That was the name that you seen there. Your email is a@a.com. That was this name there. So I'm going to create now in the admin page a button. Actually, it's going to be an anchor tag that will point to the logout page. And this will say just logout. Just so you see it happening there, logout. I'm going to build the logout route. I will do it right in here. Let me copy this and paste it. Add get, and then the logout route. Let's create a function, and what we're going to do is the same thing as we did here in the admin. First, we're going to extract the user session ID from the cookie. Once we have it, we need to remove it from the sessions. Sessions is a dictionary, so I will need to pop the user session ID. So now it's gone. And then I will redirect the user by returning redirect to the login page. Since this is done, the user ID no longer exists. The user session ID doesn't exist in the sessions dictionary. So we need to do a check in the admin where we say the following. If user session ID not in sessions, that means that the user has not been logged in, we're just going to return redirect, and we're going to redirect the user to the login page. I walk you through this again. From the cookie, we extract the user session ID, which is this variable. This variable contains this unique value. If the unique value is not in the sessions, that means that the user has not been logged in, so we take the user back to the login page. If it is in the session, we will never get to this if statement, so we actually extract the user and we render the view. Let's save it and let's try it one more time. I'm going to log in incorrectly, and that's working fine because we are back into the login page. I'm going to log in as aaday.com with pass1. Now we are in the admin page. When we log out, we go back to the login page, and if I click back, I should go to the admin, but remember that I'm logged out, so when I click back, this should not have happened. I should have gone to the login page because this should have worked. Let me debug it. To try to spot the bug, first let's go to the logout, and when we pop the user session ID, we are going to print this 30 times again, and we are going to print also what we have in the sessions. So save it, and I am going to have the terminal ready to debug it. I will log in correctly. This is what we have in the session now, this ID with this user. When I log out, nothing really happened, is that the server has crashed. So I just kill it manually again. I will rerun it. Oops, sorry, that one. And I'm going to log in now as b at b.com with pass2. Login. This is the user that we have in the session. That's the ID, all of it. This is the user B. When we log out, again, something is hanging there, so we have a bug in the logout. I never get to this print there. I never get to the print there. It's like the system doesn't understand it. So what I will do is I'm going to remove this line just to see if that one is giving us the issue. And I also want to print this user ID. So I think it's good that we got into this box so you can see how I debug it. I will extract the ID from the get user session ID, which should have been here. Let me expand this so we can all see it. It's called user underscore session underscore ID. And I will try it again. Save. Login. Now I have some issues with the server. The server is behaving really strange, so I just kill it again and rerun it. Let's go to the login page. B at b.com, pass2, login, and now I hope I can get to see the user session ID. Log out. That worked out. That was fine because I could see the user session ID right in there. And then I print the sessions, which was this one there. So that's working fine. What's not working fine was the pop. So let's check the documentation. Python, remove from dictionary. Delete an element from a dictionary. Let's check it. There was the del key. Here we have the pop with the key. Not really helpful. Let's do this instead. Python dic functions, dictionary function. And let's see the list of functions. Nothing here. Functions. Methods. We have one that says pop removes the element with a specified key. This should be the one. Let's take it. So we have the sessions, and then we're going to pop model, and that should delete the whole thing. Let's test it. So if we pop model, we're now with the brand and the year. So pretend that here we have the UUID, and right here we had the user, dictionary containing the email, the name, and so on. And then we are going to pop one. Let's see the output of it. We no longer have the entry one. So that's correct. That's the function I'm trying to use. And that will be this one. Sessions.pop user session ID, which actually is there. So this is hard to debug. I have used a couple of minutes trying to see what's going on. So I will go with the print user session ID right in there. I have also just added this word there just to see if I can spot the bug. So right here, this will be for the admin page. And I'm going to print 30 times also, just before I print admin. So I will save it again and see if I get something out of it that makes sense. Make sure that the server is totally killed, just in case. Point to the login page. Log with the email and the password. The cookie has been set. It starts with 77B, which is that 77B that we see in the admin page. Click on Logout. That's working correctly. Logout pointed to 77B, and the dictionary is empty now. I can see that because this code there print the sessions, and in this case, sessions is containing nothing. And when I click back, this should not happen. I should be taken to the login page. So when I click back in the admin, that's the view, I don't see this message display there. I hope you can find the bug. I will try to find it myself again. I have been trying to debug this for many minutes now, and this is what I have noticed. I'm going to kill the server again, and you're going to see something that makes sense, at least I think so. We're going to go back to the login page, and this is what we have. I'm going to go to the admin page, and since we have not logged in, we actually get back to the login page, which is exactly what we needed to happen. Login with the real user, visit the admin page again, that's working fine, log out. Now that I am logged out, I will visit the admin page again, and it takes me back to the login page, which is totally okay. So when I click back, I can actually see the data. So my guess is that this is being cached. So I will try to find how to disable cache in header. So from the header, we're going to try to disable it. Let's see what we can use here. Well, let's see if we can actually, yeah, that's what we need. So let's see, no cache in header. Header, no cache. It's just a case to see if this will do the job. So I want to see some good example for it. So that's not it. Let's take this one. Cache control, no cache, no store, must revalidate. This is what we would like to set. These three different keywords in the cache. So let's see how we do that. I will find the docs in a second. And yes, finally I figured out it was actually the caching taking place. So I added this line of code. I will zoom out. Response.set_header. Cache control is the first argument, and then these flags. Save. Let's test it. The server has just restarted. I'm going to log in as b at b.com with password 2. Login. We're in the admin page. Logout. And when we click in the back button, it forces the browser to go to this route. And in this route, this is not found anymore in the sessions. So this is how we create a session web system having the cookie and the cookie containing the ID that should match the ID in the sessions in the server. Well, thank you for this video. I hope you learned something from it. Goodbye.